Hello, friend. Welcome back to Locally Raised. I am processing peaches today. I have 50 pounds of peaches. Well, 50 pounds minus whatever we've eaten in the last few days. I've been having a peach with every meal lately because they're so good. But about 50 pounds of peaches that need to be canned and turned into jam. I only have a few hours to work on this morning, so I might just end up canning this morning and making jam tomorrow. I'm not sure how much I'll accomplish. But right now I'm just prepping these for blanching so that I can pull those skins off. In the past I've always just peeled my peaches with a knife, but I've also never processed this many before, so I want to try. Ooh, bug. These have been in here for 5 days and there's still a bug on one. It was a little roly-poly. All right, what was I saying? Oh, I want to try blanching the peaches to pull the skins off because I think it might be faster. I know people say it's faster. To me, it seemed like a little hassle to boil water, get them in, then get them into cold water. But at this volume, I'm hoping it helps. So my pot, I think, is starting to boil. Let's get these into the water. I put an X in the bottom of each one just to allow the water to penetrate, and then the skins should lift right off. They'll boil for just, I think, about 30 seconds to a minute. It's been 1 minute. Let's see if that was long enough. That's not long enough. Let me try 3 minutes. Those are going to need a few minutes to cool off. They're too hot to handle right now. So I'm going to put X's on the next dozen peaches, and hopefully I can get a flow going of blanching, cooling, peeling, blanching, cooling, peeling. I think peaches are my favorite summer fruit. Last summer I went peach picking, my kids and my parents, which was really sweet, but this summer has just been so busy. And my dad found a good deal on peaches at a produce auction. So he bought, he bought 6 boxes and each one was 25 pounds. So he bought 150 pounds of peaches, which I greatly appreciate. And 50 pounds went to me, 50 pounds to my brother and sister-in-law, and then 50 pounds for him and his mom. Pretty good haul for him and my mom, him and his wife. Last summer was my first time canning peaches, and I don't know why, but I just kind of expected them to taste like canned peaches from the grocery store. I know canning, always alters texture and flavor a little bit of food. So I just canned the peaches because I wanted to have fruit in the winter. That was from a local farmer, but I didn't have high expectations for flavor. And I was so pleasantly surprised when I opened my first can of peaches and realized that so much of that wonderful middle of summer bright flavor was still there. I canned my peaches in apple juice rather than sugar syrup. And I like that means less sugar in our lives, but I think it also helps with flavor. I think the sugar kind of dulls some of the peach flavor. And when they're canned in apple juice, all that bright, sweet tanginess is still there. Oh, that is satisfying. Isn't that beautiful? A whole peeled peach. Well, friend, hindsight really is 2020. As nice as it was for these skins to lift right off, I realized pretty quickly that these peaches were cooked. If you've blanched peaches before, you probably knew they'd be cooked when I announced that I was going to do them for 3 minutes. I know the recommendation is 30 seconds to a minute. They weren't lifting off after a minute, but I'm not quite sure what came over me and made me think I should just crank it up to 3. Anyhow, if I've learned anything from my previous life in education, it's that when things don't go to plan, there's no sense in getting upset about it. It's just time to pivot. Definitely didn't want soft peaches for canning. I know that there's a fine line when it comes to blanching, boiling the peach enough to release the skin, but not so much that you cook the peach. But that 3 minute mark didn't work for me in terms of the texture I would want for a canned peach. So I have this beautiful bowl of peaches that's releasing its juice, and they're very soft. And so this is going to be a jam day. I think I'll can sliced peaches probably tomorrow, depending on how time goes. Um, let's make some jam. I'm going to be using Pamona's Universal Pectin. If you've watched any of my other jam making videos, you've heard me sing the praises of this stuff. But if it's new to you, Pomona does not rely on sugar as a gelling agent. So I really like sweetening my jams with honey and with maple syrup, partially for health reasons and partially because I find that the flavor of the fruit just comes through a lot more when you don't have sugar kind of muting the flavor. I canned peach jam for the first time last summer, and I liked the flavor of it, but the texture was a little bit chunky for me and for my family. Of course, that's the way with jam because the whole fruit is in there, but I want to try blending this with my immersion blender and see if I can get a smoother flavor, or smoother texture, sorry, that we like better. I'm glad I did that. Here's the resulting texture. It's, well, let me see. I don't know if I give you a good view. It's pretty liquid smooth, which is what I want for jam. I'm going to enjoy that more, and I think my kids will too. I hadn't measured out the puree until this point, so it looks like I'm going to start with a triple batch. There is more puree left. I might make another batch after this, but a triple batch is about as much as I can fit in my canner at a time, so this is a good starting point. Because I'm tripling things, I'm adding 3/4 cup lemon juice here, and I'll put the recipe down below. The lemon juice helps the peach jam hold its color, and it also makes sure that the jam has the right acidity level for safe canning. To the peach and lemon juice mixture, I'm adding some calcium water now. Every box of Pomona's comes with a little packet of calcium powder, and it's mixed with water to create a mixture that's part of the jam, or part of every jam. And so you can keep it in your fridge for a couple months. This is calcium water I have left over from the last time that I made jam. Next, I'm measuring out my honey. Honey is the only sweetener in this jam, and I really love the flavor of it. I think last year when I made peach jam in a video, I mentioned that I hoped this year I'd be using honey from my own bees. That didn't happen. My bees didn't make it through the winter, but I'm starting another colony, and I'm really hoping that next spring I will have my first harvest and I will make jams from my own honey. Anyhow, the recipe here calls for anywhere from half a cup to a cup of honey. I'm going to start on the lighter end and taste and go from there. So I'm just using a cup and a half here because I'm doing a triple batch. The nice thing about this jam is you can taste it uh, in one of the final stages of making it and still have time to adjust sweetener without impacting food safety at all. Finally, it's time to stir the pectin into the honey. This needs to be completely combined before it's worked into the rest of the mixture. So this is a recipe with simple ingredients. All of these jams from Pomona's are simple. So it's just fruit, sweetener, lemon juice, pectin, and calcium water. This has come up to a boil, so I'm going to start to add my honey pectin. That's so pretty. I can feel it getting thicker already. Once the honey and pectin have been added and it hasn't returned to a boil yet, that's the time to taste for sweetness. I'm going to give it a little taste to turn the heat down. That is a little bit tart. I think I'm going to add about a half cup of honey. See if I like that taste better. And then I'll bring this back up to a boil to thicken it. I might just add this whole little bear. Okay. See what it tastes like now. I'm out of honey, so if I don't like this, I'm going to have to turn to maple syrup. Actually, it's still a little tart. I'm going to add a bit of maple syrup. I told you we buy honey by the gallon. Here's our maple syrup portion. We like our sweeteners. All right, a little bit of that yet. I'll just have a touch of maple flavor. That's good. So I probably ended up with, I'd say maybe 2.5 cups of sweetener. Now I'm going to bring this back up to a boil, and it needs to boil for 1 to 2 minutes to fully thicken, and then it's going into my jars. You can see it's reached a full boil now, so I'm going to set my timer. And give it consistent stirring while it boils for 2 minutes. Seems like I say this every time I make jam, but truly, that is such a pretty color. Here, let me give you a better view. The headspace for jam is just a 1/4 inch, so a lot of these jars had to be topped off a bit as I checked with my headspace tool. Next, I wiped down the rims with a damp paper towel. Sorry for the awkward view here. I didn't realize my shoulder was blocking things. I just wanted to get any sticky residue off so that we could make sure to have a good seal. Finally, it was time for lids and bands. The bands were tightened to just fingertip tight, and then everything was ready to go into the canner. I know most canners load this into the rack while it's over the pot, but I have just found that every time I do that, I knock the rack into the pot and just splash boiling water. It's just not worth it. I'll give this 5 minutes to cool down, and then I'm going to pull them out, hoping they're sealed. All 10 of those sealed, and I've got the next 3 ready to go into the canner. John also came out and did a taste test. We were both really happy with this recipe. I like it better than the maple vanilla peach jam that I made last time, and I really like the texture too. I'm going to blend it from now on in the immersion blender. I actually have a little bit more peach puree, as you can see, so I think I might just mix up another batch on the stove and we will have a lot of jam. So I've decided to rally and keep going with these peaches, not wait till tomorrow. I took a good look at them and I could tell they're not going to be as good tomorrow. They're good today, but they're just starting, a few of them, to get too soft. We're starting to get some flies buzzing around here. This needs to happen. So for canning sliced peaches, I'm going back to the trusty old peel with a knife approach, because I just didn't like them getting a little bit cooked with the blanching method. Peaches are so ripe, often the skin comes off in a big strip. Oops. Well, okay. Almost off. Always. Not quite that time. It's really satisfying. As I mentioned earlier, I use apple juice as the canning liquid for canning peaches instead of a syrup. I think this is just a win in every way. It's less sugar in our bodies and it's less work because I don't have to make a syrup, and I think it preserves the peach flavor a little bit better. It is now 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This day started around 9 o'clock, and I have had some times where I stopped to get kids meals and things like that. But for the most part, other than that, I have been processing peaches. Oh, and baby girl is helping out now. So let me show you everything that's going on right now just to give you a sense of what a peach day looks like. These are my 7 quarts of canned sliced peaches, and I'm about to take those out of the canner. They've been cooling. I decided while they processed to quick make one last batch of jelly. Yes. Oh my goodness, she's talking. One last batch of jelly or jam, sorry, because I already really like the way it tastes, and so I think we're gonna want more. So I did 12-ounce jars this time. My goodness, baby. My goodness. Okay, here's the one who won't be quiet. And what we've got left are just a handful of peaches. Well, maybe they're more than a handful. This is what remains. So the end is in sight. I'm gonna get these quarts out of the canner, get the last bit of jam into the canner, and I'm gonna call it for today. I'll decide tomorrow what to do with those final few peaches. They are beautiful. I think everything's sealed. I know I'm gonna be grateful for this in the winter. It's one of my favorite summer flavors, and when it's cold and I'm just a little sick of it, I'll have some of this and know that summer comes again. Sounds a bit dramatic, but I know that's how I'll feel. Here's what the day's work produced. I used some of the extra peaches to make a cobbler that we really enjoyed for dinner. It had some really nice crumble on top. I'll put that recipe below as well. Thanks so much for joining me today for a day of setting aside peaches for the winter. I look forward to sharing more with you next week.